Hello, my name is Chris and welcome to this Time to Create video. Today we will be drawing or painting a self-portrait. The image of the face is the traditional way of representing the self, and this is even continued into our selfie-obsessed culture. However, there are other options and ways to explore how to represent yourself. For example, you could bring together a collection of objects, of items that are meaningful to you, that have some meaning, that say something about you and your life, and they could be said to represent who you are. So, in effect, a self-portrait. Here are a collection of objects that represent my current interests, although some of them have been with me since childhood, and as I say, they could be said to represent a snapshot of my life, of me in this moment. And when you've brought your objects together, you could take a photograph of them as a record of what's important to you, what matters to you, and as a representation of yourself. And if you've got family and friends around you, you could always ask them to do this as an exercise as well. And I'm quite sure it would be a topic for conversation. You'd probably find out interests and hobbies you might not have been aware of, and you'd also find common areas that overlap, that are the same. Another way you could also represent yourself without doing a traditional self-portrait would be to use a diary or a book. You could put photographs in, you could collage materials and objects into it. You could write poems or stories about your life, or use it as a diary, and in a sense that would also be a representation of yourself, a self-portrait, a snapshot of you at this time. When I was at university, we had to make artist books, and I'd started running at the time for various reasons, and I lived out in the countryside, and my book was like a box, and it opened out with the concertinaed paper inside, and the map of the area where I run was printed along the sheets of paper, and I annotated each page with the story of how I came to run, where I ran, and why I was running, and I used the map reference numbers to refer to photographs that I took along my run, and I put the photographs into a handmade envelope within the book. So it was a story, it was a representation of a particular time in my life, and so therefore it was a representation of me, a self-portrait of me at that time. So returning to the initial plan for this session, we're going to do a painting or a drawing, if you like, of our faces. And this is something that can cause quite a lot of anxiety doing a self-portrait, worrying about getting it right rather than just being playful and experimental. And so to kind of get past that, I'm not going to use brushes or pens or pencils, but I've been making some tools out of bits of cardboard, a cotton bud, can use an old piece of bamboo, and also a seed pod from a California poppy. I've got an old toothbrush and an old cleaning sponge, and hopefully with these they kind of force me to be playful, to be bold with my mark making. You also need some paper and a mirror. So I'm just going to cut this piece of toilet roll and just shred the end so it's a bit like a brush. Have it as wide or as narrow as you like. Obviously you're going to make more marks the more kind of teeth the brush has. Let's have a thick piece of card. Cut this one to a wedge. So you can use both ends of that to make narrow marks and wide marks and edges. I'll just make a smaller one. There we go, we'll have a go at those. And what I'm using as to draw with, I'm going to be using some inks, but you don't have to use ink. You could use watercolour paint or any kind of paint really, or you could use food colouring even. I'm going to use two coloured inks. I've got a black ink which I'm going to water down and a brown ink. Now it's worth having a bit of a play with the tools that you've made, just to see what kind of marks they make. I mean, obviously the cotton bud is going to be smooth marks. And dabbing. Piece of cardboard. It's going to be a similar mark, I think. The comb ones. And as you can see, you can't be too precious with the mark making because it's quite difficult to control it. It's got a piece of sponge. I also just picked up a little piece of candle wax and I wondered if I put that on, what happens when I put some ink over that. Oh, a little bit of resist there. Anyway, so that's my tools. Now I'm going to have a go at doing this self-portrait. So I have a mirror here, and that's positioned in front of my drawing paper. So let's get started. I look really grumpy in this picture, and it doesn't look anything like me. Well, I've kind of completed the painting, and to be fair, I look like a quite a serious newsreader. I had a lot of fun doing it though, to be honest, and it was interesting just playing with the different tools that I'd made. Though I didn't make very many marks there, did I? Really, to be honest, which is what I set out to do. Anyway, I hope you can have a go at that, and try not to take it as seriously as I did. As seriously as I did. Earlier on, we talked about other ways you could make a self-portrait other than drawing or painting, and I got some inspiration actually from an artist called Giuseppe Arcimboldo, who painted in the late sort of 1500s, and he painted portraits of people using flowers and fruits and vegetables. You've probably seen them, and I'll put his name up on the screen, and you can always Google him and Google some of his incredible paintings. So I thought just for fun I'd have a go at doing something similar, and my starting point was this naan bread, because it looks vaguely like the shape of my face. So I thought I'd start with this naan bread and use some fruits and vegetables, mushrooms and olives and things to make a self-portrait.